What's happening, guys? Welcome back to the channel. For today's video, we're going to be checking out the Transformers Legacy Evolution Leader Class Prime Universe Skyquake. Now, this is one that I've been very much so looking forward to. You guys all know how much I love Transformers Prime, and back in the day, 2012, 2013, Skyquake, the original Voyager class figure, was near enough impossible to find. I never managed to pick that up. Lucky enough, I found Dreadwing, but I always wanted his brother to go alongside him, and in some ways, I'm glad I never found that original figure, as this one is just way better in so many ways, which is quite surprising considering I wasn't too impressed with the Prime Universe RC and Bulkhead. So let's do this. Here we have Skyquake in his robot mode, and I mean, straight away, easily recognizable as the original Prime character. I think they've done such a sweet job. I mean, yeah, it's stylized and it does borrow a few design traits from the original Predator G1 Skyquake, mainly in the chest, but just overall, it is such a nice reimagining of the character, and if they bring out more Prime Universe characters, please keep the designs as faithful as what we're seeing here with Skyquake. So here for the head sculpt, I mean, that gunmetal silver is just so sinister looking, and the sculpt work is just pretty cool. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, that is a really sweet looking design. I love how thick and bulky the shoulders are. I mean, especially with these almost metallic steel-like pieces on the sides. You can just imagine Skyquake bonking an Autobot on the head, and to be fair, probably killing him on sight. Here for the chest, like I said, this is more of a traditional G1 Skyquake, so we don't get the nose cone of the jet, but really nice detail. You can see some of that kind of techie cybernetic sculpt work going on inside, and a pretty classic looking Decepticon logo. Paintwork across the board for the figure appears to be pretty much on point. I mean, you can see some nice metallic silvers here for the top of the forearms. We get the classic red around the cuff. Really nice detail for that chest piece, and then all the way throughout the figure, you'll notice some pretty nice mechanical detail. And the grey plastic, you know, it's not that ugly prototype grey. It's a nice gunmetal. It just works with the rest of the paint. So yeah, really a big fan of that. And then as we just come down here to the bottom of the figure, overall, I mean, it's a solid figure, barely any hollow spaces. And for example, here for the forearms, due to transformation, these do flip inside, and they added an additional panel to prevent hollowness, which is exactly what you'd expect from a leader. Now, as we come around to the back, you know what? No back kibble, to be fair. He actually had these wings in the show, so I can't complain too much. I mean, from a side perspective, he's big, thick, and chunky, much like he was in the series, and they've even painted the insides of the wings. Now, you won't see this as much when we get him into jet mode, so this is solely for the robot mode. And even here, you can see some nice kind of cybernetic techie detail, which I thought was a pretty sweet touch, and the posability on the wings is sick. So yeah, I'm thoroughly impressed with the design. If you hadn't guessed already, this is really sweet. Now, I have to talk about a few things which kind of bug me. So officially, these pieces here are supposed to tab into these slots, and unfortunately, they don't really clasp into the tabs all that well. I mean, they'll hold in there for a little bit, but when you're just handling the figure, 9 times out of 10, they'll slowly find themselves drooping around to the butt. So I do wish maybe that could have snapped in a little better, and I also wish he had some bigger heel spurs. I mean, these are basically the thrusters, very dainty to support this whole upper torso. So yeah, I mean, it can cause some stability issues depending on what type of surface you have, but if you manage to find the balance during posing, it shouldn't be too much of an issue. Now, articulation wise, Skyquake has a ball joint which can look up to a fantastic range. So, you know, maybe he's charging towards Agent Fowler, Bumblebee, or Optimus Prime, which is pretty sweet. It can also look down as well as rotate left to right. The shoulder pads are independent of the actual shoulders, so you can get these out of the way. They can move up and down any way you'd want. We get some wicked butterfly joints, which are awesome for the sword as well as the Gatling gun, as well as some decent hinge joints going forwards and backwards. Some proper clicky ratchet joints going out to the sides here for the shoulders. So I thought that was pretty sweet, and a very tough bicep rotation, so that can rotate the full 360. We get double jointed elbows due to the way this guy transforms, as well as some wrist rotation. Unfortunately, no articulated fingers like we've seen with some of the leaders, but I'm not going to detract any points. We get a proper uncompromised waist rotation. I mean, despite having the wings on the back, as you can see, that is really cool. And I guess, much like the Studio Series RC, a fake ab crunch, because of the way he transforms, you can get this crunching forwards, which is pretty cool, although you'll probably dislodge the transformation joint. So when you bring this down, just make sure you click that nose cone back into place. The hips can kick forwards on some very soft ratchet joints, roughly to 90. They can kick back to a wicked degree, as well as can also ratchet out to the sides. Nice clicky joint, thigh rotation, double jointed knees due to transformation. I mean, that is a fantastic range. And then finally here for the feet, the toe can pivot forwards and backwards, and he has a tiny bit of ankle pivot, although, you know, it leaves a little bit to be desired. I maybe wish it could have been a little more drastic, but other than that, not too bad at all. And then as we come here to the wings, we get in total, I'd say about 4 joints. So 2 here at the base, so these can hinge forwards and backwards, and then you get these ones which you'll mainly see for jet mode, so you can move these forwards and backwards as well. So you can get some pretty funky kind of combinations with how you want to display the wings. Again, completely up to you guys. Overall, thoroughly impressed. Now let's talk about weaponry. So for those of you who are old enough to remember, back in the Transformers Prime days, they had this gimmick, I think it was called Weaponizers. The original Skyquake and Dreadwing came with some terrible weapons, besides the sword. It was basically this spring-loaded translucent LED fusion, which was just terrible. This is much better. It's a proper sculpted-in Gatling gun, which looks way more accurate to the series. Wicked detailing here for the front. I mean, kind of looks like a mincing tool. You can imagine him ramming this into the throat of an Autobot. This piece spinning and absolutely churning the insides out, which I thought was kind of cool. We get some nice sculpt work, completely unpainted, but I don't think that's too bad, as well as an additional handle so that he can hold this properly with both hands and have him gunning down Optimus Prime, which I thought was cool. The tip is blast effect compatible, but his Evo-Fusion gimmick is that the ammo can detach, so you can just unclip it, and I wonder what they have in store for us. So if you flip this piece out, bang, we have his sword, fully decked out in a nice kind of energon yellow, I guess you could say. I mean, it doesn't look too bad. Initially when I saw it, it looked more like a Cybertronian toothpick. It is a little dainty. I wish maybe it was a bit larger, had a little more substance, but gets the job done. Strangely enough, they've added this kind of ridge so that it can only slide in the hand one way, and you're not able to rotate it left to right. So for example, if we slide it into this hand, it has to go in where the slot is, otherwise it just won't go all the way in, and then you can't rotate it left to right. I mean, it's not a big deal, but it does beg the question as to why they did that. But just to demonstrate some of the posability, you know, Skyquake, he's walking through those mountains, bang, he captures Bumblebee, whooshing, slices his head clean off with that sick butterfly joint. So yeah, overall guys, I'm geeking out. This is a really cool figure and definitely my most anticipated release from Legacy Wave 2. So let's check out a few comparisons. Here is the most important one. We have the new Legacy Skyquake alongside the original Skyquake Voyager mold. This of course being the Dreadwing repaint, which we'll no doubt see coloured on this guy. But you know, despite this not being a one-to-one match to how he originally appeared in the show, I do find myself liking this one much better. You know, it's bigger, it's bulkier, and it's better. Better engineering, better articulation, and better presence. And you know what, besides the absence of the cockpit and this one being, you know, slightly more redesigned to match that old toy, I think they've done a pretty good job in translating the designs. I mean, here they are from a side-by-side perspective, so as you can see, this one just has a lot more mass in the upper body like he did in the old series, and here is what they look like here from a back perspective. And if you own this figure, you guys all know that it was far from perfect. It had a lot of rubber joints, especially in the head. The wings didn't like staying propped up, and unfortunately, when we get this guy into jet mode, it was pretty much a train wreck. And don't even get me started on the weaponry. So yeah, in my opinion, you know, I'm quite surprised to say, as I love the old Transformers Prime toys, but this is definitely a marked improvement. And for a quick trip down memory lane, here we have the APC Toys First Edition Optimus Prime, and scaling wise, I think they look great. Here he is alongside the Voyager Earthrise Optimus Prime, the Legacy Prime Voyager bulkhead, and Skyquake is just a much better appreciation of the original design. I mean, unfortunately, I think this is a clear case of where they strayed too far away from the original source material. Here's the Leader Class Legacy Blitzwing, the Legacy Evolution Voyager Class Tarn, Prime Universe Legacy Knockout, Legacy RC, and to be honest, the less said about this figure the better. And finally, just because these two have a few shenanigans going on in the alt mode, the Legacy Evolution Deluxe Class Needlenose. Now let's turn to the transformation. You know what guys, definitely intricate, and I'm still determining whether or not I prefer him in robot or alt mode, as the jet is pretty sick looking. So to kickstart things off with, what I like to do is just take the shoulder pads and hinge these backwards, you know, just to get them out of the way. We can then take these arm covers, detach those, hinge them upwards, and then the hands will fold into that hollow cavity. Like I said previously, you know, had this not been there, it would have looked pretty ugly, so I'm glad they did add this panel. We can then take this double joint, and what's going to happen is it will basically collapse in upon itself, just like that. We can then do the same here for this side, so flip open this panel, take the wrist, fold that in, and then take this double hinge joint and just compress it upwards. Now personally, I like to ratchet the shoulders out just a little bit to get them out of the way. We can now come down here to the legs. You're going to want to take these back fins, detach those, bring them all the way around, and there is a tab that's going to peg into this slot, so just snap that in there, leave it off to the side for now, and come to this side and do the exact same. So bring that around, snap that section there into place. Now what I like to do is come here to the center of the torso, and this nose cone is what attaches it to the hips. So what I like to do here is just take it and extend this piece here all the way up. The main chest is on a slider joint, so it can extend forwards and backwards, and you also get this hinge joint which I showcased for the transformation, which helps just getting things out of the way. We can now take the head and shift it backwards. This too is on a slider joint, so for robot mode it's pulled forwards, and then for transformation you're just going to want to push it backwards. We can then now come around to the back of the figure. You're going to want to split the wings just like that, and then take these pieces, fold them out of the way, and just collapse the nose cone, the original one that we'll use for jet mode, along the side. We can then now take the waist joint, rotate this section around, as what's going to happen is we're going to take these wings and just bring these down just like that. We can then take the arms, bring them out, fold the shoulder pads down, take the head and lift it back slightly, as we're then going to take this entire nose cone, again pull these pieces forwards and just fold this here up and over until that does slide into that notch there. We can then take the rest of the nose cone, snap that into place, and if the landing gear is automatically deployed, then we can just shift that back in there. What you'll now want to do is come here to the arms, fold those backwards, take the wings, bring those back up, and there's a tiny bit of folding that goes on here, so you're going to want to rotate this back into its original position at the waist. Now we can just rotate this panel around and do the exact same here for this side, and then combine the two halves. So snap them in there, and there's a tiny tab which is created out of this top piece that will slide into that slot, so lock that in there nice and securely. We can then flip here to the underside, straighten that piece out, and combine the arms in the middle. So just snap these here together and then ratchet those down, and they have created a tiny tab that will peg into this tiny little slot. So just bring them all the way down until they click into place. We can then now take these pieces, push those down until they too snap into place nice and securely. What I like to do is just lift these pieces of the wings up just to get them out of the way, as we're going to begin working here on the legs. So ratchet these sections here all the way up, rotate here at the thigh, and then utilize this double knee joint, and this tiny hollow compartment we have here at the back will be filled by the thigh. So just bring that all down. There is a tab on the inside of the wing that's going to peg into this slot, so just bring that down, snap that into place, and rinse and repeat the exact same process here for the opposite side. So rotate that around, bend here at the knee, snap that into place, take these fins, pull them upwards. Now, depending on your preference, you can leave the toes splayed open, much like we saw for robot mode, or you can slick them backwards, which, to be honest, I think creates for a slightly more aerodynamic look. But with all that being said, there we have Legacy Skyquake fully transformed up into his sick looking jet mode. And you know what, for a leader class, I think this is one of the coolest looking jets that we've seen for a very long time. So let's do it again. You know, here we have the details of the front of the nose cone, wicked metallic silver techie bursts that we have scattered throughout this thing. I mean, those big, thick, meaty shoulder pads really do create for quite a fearsome look in the jet mode with these kind of spikes flaring off to the side. Now, a sweet touch which they didn't have to include is that you can open the cockpit. It's not Headmaster compatible, but still very nice internal detail. You can see kind of the pilot seat, really nice controls there, which I thought was such a nice touch. And just as we work our way through the body of the jet, awesome paintwork and such nice sculpting. Love this area in particular, and again, there are some slight nods to that original G1 Skyquake, such as these intakes here on the sides, or the thrusters. They've been picked out with a nice metallic silver, a few mech tech ports, you know, if you want to spice this guy up with a few additional accessories. But I really like the red bursts we have, you know, it just makes him again look so fearsome. You can imagine this thing flying through the sky, raining hell on the Autobots. And then as we come around to the back, we get 3 thrusters, so 2 which are made out of the feet, and then this one massive one, which isn't blast effect compatible. It merely is just the ones here for the feet, which I'll showcase in just a second. But overall, really nice. You'll notice that we have these big tabs, which don't worry, I'll get to in just a second. And in terms of a side profile, I mean, you know what? Not too much kibble at all. And the kibble that we do have, which is made out of the side of the legs, I think goes along with the aesthetic of this jet. You know, it's a very mean, heavy-duty looking one, and nothing too distracting at all. Now, he also has a few additional features. So in addition to the opening cockpit, we also get some sculpted in landing gear, so we can flip out that front one. Nice detailing there. And we also get one here for the back, so that looks pretty cool. decent sculpt work on them. And then we also get some articulation, so you can hinge these pieces up, which I believe the original Predator jet also did. So that is a display option that you guys can use if you wanted to. And in terms of weapon storage, there is a huge port here, which was originally the butt of Skyquake, that we can take this tab to and just smack it in, flip that landing gear up, and like I said previously, you can have Skyquake absolutely annihilating the Autobots when in jet mode, which is pretty sweet. But we're not done just yet. Oh no, as Skyquake again has some hidden features. So as we come around here to the rear of the jet, if you take these wings and collapse them down, it allows perfect access to these huge chunky tabs. And you guys may be asking, well, what are they for? Well, if you have Legacy Evolution Needlenose on what was originally the robot mode chest piece, he has these huge slots, which, as one would imagine, should allow these in theory to combine, and yes, they absolutely do. So if you line them up properly, bang, you have Needlenose slapped on top of Skyquake, which, correct me if I'm wrong, which I think again is a nice throwback to that original G1 Predator Skyquake. And to me at least, you know, this throws me back to the old Hunt for the Decepticons Revenge of the Fallen days with, I think it was Skystalker and Mindwipe, where you could combine those two into something which, to be honest, looked very similar to this. So I like the cross compatibility, I like the kind of hidden Easter eggs that they're scattering throughout the waves of Legacy Evolution, and I mean, I'm looking forward to seeing as to some of those upcoming Junkions, as if they've thrown this in, who knows what some of those other figures have in store for us. But yeah, I thought this was a pretty sweet gimmick. And here for some quick jet mode comparisons, we have Legacy Leader Skyquake alongside the original Skyquake / Dreadwing mold, which I think came out in either 2012 or 2013, but a marked improvement in materials, engineering, and scale. I mean, this had a lot of rubber on it. I was quite surprised. These back fins are rubber, the nose cone's rubber, and even the wings are made out of a slightly thinner plastic. But this one, surprisingly, has hard pieces pretty much everywhere. So yeah, definitely, I think the new Legacy version is vastly superior, especially in the way it's able to hide most of the robot mode kibble. But again, this is a leader, whereas this one here was a Voyager. Here for a more recent Legacy Leader jet, we have Blitzwing. Now I have to make a few allowances because this guy was a triple changer. He essentially has an entire tank on the underside, but you can see that Skyquake is not only a leader by name, he's a leader by scale. He is much bigger when in comparison to Blitzwing. So yeah, definitely quite a meaty looking jet from this guy. And for one of the more recent Legacy jet formers, we have the deluxe class Needlenose, just so you guys can gather a sense of how these two roughly look next to each other. Now, because this guy is slightly more complex, I'm going to showcase the reverse transformation. Let me know down below if you guys think this is a segment I should keep for future reviews. But first of all, you're going to want to come here to these sections and just hinge those forwards like that. We can then come here to the underside of the jet and detach the wings from the inside of the leg. We can then take this here, bring this all the way down, detach this fin piece, bring this around, and it will slide into this tiny little slot. So just snap that in there and flip out the toe if you haven't done so already. Do the same here for this side, so detach the wing. We can then bring this here all the way down, rotate here at the thigh, take this panel, bring this around, and snap that there into place, and again, flip out the toe. We can now take the arms, ratchet these all the way up, and then split them out to the sides. You'll now want to come here to these wings, split those, and just fold those out, as we're going to rotate that waist around so that the chest piece is kind of aligned with the outer section of the hips. We can then come around here to the front. You're going to want to take this piece here, pull this here up and over the head, and then whilst you're doing that, make sure the arms are out of the way, take the shoulder pads and hinge those upwards. We can now take the nose cone, bring this section forwards, and what you're going to want to do is just leave it resting like that for now. We can then take the wings, bring these sections forwards here, take this section, and I think it flips this way, just like that, and do the exact same here for the opposite side. So just take this and flip that around, and now you're almost going to want to feed the original cockpit through these two halves, as these are going to combine like you saw previously. So just snap those there into place, and then try your best again to align those tiny little tabs that we have on the inside of this to these slots, but 9 times out of 10 they're more than likely going to detach. We can then rotate the waist back around, get this piece aligned with this locking mechanism, as when we push this down, this part of the nose cone will actually click into place, just like that. So far so good. We can then bring the shoulders around, take the head, slide it forwards, and then extend here at the double joint that we have for the elbows. Take the hands, fold these out, bring these additional covers up and over, and they'll just snap into place. Bring that down and then flip out the hand. Do the same here on this side. Bring those shoulders down, and for some finishing touches, just bring the shoulder pads up and over, and then orientate the wings in whatever way that you guys want. And there is Skyquake back in his robot mode. And wrapping up on this review for the Transformers Legacy Evolution Skyquake. Overall, for a Prime-inspired universe character, this is great. I mean, I wish that they had stuck this faithful to RC and Bulkhead as far as their original designs were concerned, as this is the perfect fusion of the old and the new. You know, the robot mode, instantly recognizable as that big bad brute that we saw way over a decade ago. I really like the colors. You know, this is a marked improvement in my opinion when in comparison to the original mold. Great articulation, great paint, great mass for a leader class, and then when we get stuck into transformation, you know what, as you would expect, pretty involved and complex for a leader. I will say it's quite challenging, but I like that. And then we get stuck into the jet mode, which I think is pretty much flawless. You know, much like the robot mode, it's big, it's thick, it's bulky, and it looks sick. Awesome paint details. I like the gimmicks such as the opening cockpit, the flipping out landing gear, really nice compatibility with the Legacy Needlenose. You know, that's something they didn't have to throw in there, but I thought was a pretty sweet touch. And you know, this guy's going to see many repaints. I can imagine them giving us maybe a repaint retool to that original G1 Predator Skyquake. I definitely think that's on the horizon, and we're no doubt going to see a blue repaint of Skyquake into his brother Dreadwing, which I know is a fan favourite, as that was the character that we got to know a little more about in the Transformers Prime TV series. So I'd love to get your thoughts down in the comment section below. You know, what do you guys think of this latest leader class, and what do you guys think of the design approach that they've taken for this figure? Personally, I really like it, and I'm hoping to see more of this in the future. I thank you all so much for watching, and until my next review, I'll see you then. Thanks for watching.